Self-Care Sunday. I was thinking about different conversations and different experiences that I've had where it kind of led me towards this particular topic of ways to raise your self-awareness about your mental health. One of the questions that I have been asked on more than one occasions is, how do you know when you or someone you love may need to seek the help of a professional therapist? And so I just want to share with you, these are just some questions to kind of ask yourself when thinking about making that decision. It's not meant to diagnose any type of diagnosis or disorders or anything like that. It's just a way to think about like self-awareness, and maybe I might need to go and talk to someone else. So what are the current stressors, and if those stressors are feeling like they are unbearable amounts of, stress, what has that person or what has your mood been like for the past 30 days or so? And then the last question is whatever is, this stress that is happening in your life, is it impacting various aspects of your life, such as, is it preventing you from going to work? Is it impairing your ability to function at your best at work? Is it impacting your relationships around you? Is it impacting your ability to go to school and function at school? And then also think about, like, hey, like, am I like doing things or not doing things that I used to find enjoyment in? Those are just some beginning questions to kind of ask yourself. You're thinking about, like, hey, maybe I need to find some resources for myself or for my loved one. Other thing that I was thinking about was a conversation that I had with a coworker, maybe about 2 to 3 years ago. A former coworker, and I apologize, guys. I apologize, my camera just cut off. But she was a former coworker, and she was a new mom. And prior to her being a new mom, she had experienced a miscarriage maybe a year or so prior. We ended up in this conversation talking about, her wanting to write a book about, her experiences with having a miscarriage, and her kind of like talking to other women who had the same experiences, and how she wanted to bring awareness to it, because a lot of times women, have guilt and shame kind of tied into their miscarriages, which prevents them from like really being able to get the help that they need. I was thinking about that conversation because that conversation sort of led into us just talking about how sometimes that especially I'm going to speak directly to like the Black community, we don't deal with mental health issues and mental health disorders until it becomes a crisis. Suppressing those feelings, suppressing those emotions. Some people pick up maladaptive behaviors, habits, and different things like that to sort of numb themselves, to sort of, not think about like what they are experiencing, and so all of a sudden this person is in crisis mode, and so just kind of like bringing the awareness about that and like taking away the stigma. And so like over the past few years, there's been a lot of advocacy about the mental health in the Black community, because there is still so much stigma tied around to diagnoses, what a person looks like, people's perceptions of mental health. Even the word mental health sometimes is scary for people, and some people are taken back when you start to talk about mental health. I'm just happy to see that there's so much work now that's being done in so many different organizations, and so many people are starting to help erase the stigma. I do realize it's not a topic that's exclusive to the Black community. I think it is very imperative, because there are some of our experiences that are a little bit different. Just one of another part of the conversation about just, self-awareness. Sometimes it's just very scary for people to think about mental health, even for loved ones to think about, my child might be experiencing something. Then it becomes this crisis that happens in the family. Family members may or may not know. They may not know how to best support the individual. So that's why it's so important to erase the stigma and to also talk about resources. There's so many resources out for mental health. I was just listening to a podcast today and someone was talking about NAMI. So if you go to their website, they have lots of resources there for family members, for individuals, even on a state by state basis. I know a lot of times, we talk about the police being called when is experiencing a crisis. In most states, there is a service. I know here in Connecticut, we have 211 where you can call and they will dispatch out a licensed professional clinician to assess the situation and help de-escalate it. I cannot tell you how many times, guys, it actually works. So even within agencies and programs that I worked in, we said like, hey, we tell family members call 211 as opposed to calling the police unless someone is in like imminent danger. Look for those resources in your area. There's a lot of intensive programs that will come into your home, especially for children. I've worked in two different, currently working in an intensive in-home service program. So there's services that will come into the home. So let's say your child had a psychiatric hospitalization, and usually they will refer them to some sort of intensive outpatient, but there's also intensive in-home services. So I just want to be able to just offer you guys the resources to let you know what is out there. I always also start with your EAP if you are working. Most employees, I don't know if you have to be a certain size, like employ a certain amount of people, but the employee assistance program will also help you find a therapist. So that's through your job. Then you have like all these different telehealth. Telehealth has become hugely popular through this pandemic because no one was going, in offices. We weren't going into the homes. We used telehealth to do our sessions. And I must say, telehealth, everyone was kind of apprehensive about it at first. Like, oh, what is it going to look like? It's going to be really weird. And I'm going to tell you, telehealth is valuable. It is valuable, just being able to talk to someone. And this is going to be my last thing that I'm going to talk about is my professor. And you may hear me talk about this particular professor. It's not the one from last week that did the guided meditation with us, but it's a different professor. And I just love his outlook on, counseling. It's all about being there with a person. And so that's why I was going to connect it into like the telehealth part. I've had great sessions on telehealth. And so when I say like this professor, he would say like, be the best you that you can be, to us as therapists, like be the best you. Don't try to be the next, Freud, or don't try to be the next Carl Jung, or, all these different past therapists and past like fathers of psychology or whatever we want to call them. He's very, very like meeting people where they're at. Also just, being there for people. Then, because like I said, like we think like, okay, like this is happening, so we need to do X, Y, Z, Z, Z. And that is another thing that I've heard from a lot of people. I've heard from a lot of people in different conversations is sometimes they just want someone to be there with them, to listen to them, and not to necessarily offer advice. Some people want advice. I always say it's not my role to give you advice. I kind of help you decide what direction you want to take. But, sometimes people just want you to be there. And I've heard this so many times. Like I just need someone to hear me. I just feel misunderstood. Those are just some things to think about with raising your awareness for your mental health. And, just even you are dealing with other